Yo, hey, hi, whoo, whoo, 3 days, all 48-ish hours to go. Whew. We're almost at the finish line, y'all. This one's going to probably feel like I'm salty, but I'm not salty. I just want to clear some stuff up, okay? Which is the whole point of these videos. I can do it with inflection. You guys can understand where a creator's coming from and the things that we have to do. Today's subject is about spinning plates. If you've never heard the analogy of spinning plates, right? You spin a plate. The whole point of the analogy is if you have a lot of plates you're spinning, as this one slows down and begins to wobble, you have to run over and you have to spin it again, spin, 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 spin. And then this one's wobbling and you go, and so the analogy is that when you're spinning a lot of plates, you're constantly running from one issue to the other. And that's what it's like running a Kickstarter, making a game. This is why Jamie, and I'm not going to speak for Jamie Stegmaier, but this is one of the reasons I'm sure Jamie, I think he's probably talked about this a good bit in some of his follow-ups, doesn't do Kickstarters anymore, right? Jamie Stegmaier. It's much easier just to make a game and release it to retail. Much easier. Here you go. Here's the game. Go buy it if you want it. And so there's some definite appeal to that. We get so many requests. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Why aren't you offering it like this? Why aren't you doing this? And because of this format, people have certain expectations to be heard. Why aren't you answering my question? Why didn't you answer it the way I wanted it? Why isn't this here? I can't believe you're charging this much of this. I know for a fact. That's my favorite, right? Somebody who's never made a game. I know for a fact it doesn't cost this. I know for a fact you can do it differently. I saw Gloomhaven ship the first game for free. Why are you charging us? It's just a nonstop barrage of what feels like assault, just verbal assault. And you see it a lot. I hear people talk about like, oh, you need 10 good comments to cover a very bad one. And I think that's just different personality types. For me, unfortunately, I really enjoy the positive comments. But they're very short-lived, right? The negative things really live in my head a long time. One, I can't imagine some people's, this is how they choose to spend their time. Like reaching out to people and being like, I had a tweet this morning from someone who was like, I was backing the RPG, but the campaign hasn't talked about it enough, and so I'm dropping my pledge. Like, what's the meme? Like, you don't have to announce your departure from the airport. And I don't understand. And I replied back, I'm like, what do you mean we haven't covered it enough? There's Table Story is doing an entire season of the RPG that you can go watch the system in action. We've had upgrades to the book. We've broke down the abilities, the species. We've talked about what's in the book. So like, I mean, maybe you wanted it covered it differently and you're upset that it's not a part of, it's not its own campaign, for which I can understand, I guess. But like I didn't ask a question. They went out of their way to tweet this at me. Like, this is I do want feedback. And it's not that we don't want feedback. It's just the way that you do it, guys. The way that you do it, the way that you give feedback is important. You come in like a salty dog, and I don't understand. Oh, it's so hard not to respond in kind. But that's not the professional thing to do. We're supposed to just eat crap. That's what customers think. That the business is just supposed to eat it. The customer is always right. I'm here to tell you the customer is not always right. In fact, the customer is almost always wrong. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get good customer service, and that there's not plenty of good things that require feedback and compensation from companies. But I think what I'm getting at is when you're spinning all these plates, and people are like, well, what about the foreteller app? And what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm not using I'm not picking on you with the foreteller app suggestion. I didn't even know that thing existed really before the campaign. So I like looking into all that stuff. But there's only so much stuff that you can do in the bandwidth of a campaign. And like in our case, we've added a sun drop / wash effect add-on. And for the first time ever in over 11 or 12 Kickstarter campaigns, I've submitted to the sleevers and given them some sort of solution, right? But just like, I knew what would happen. There's people in there, who didn't even read the details of it, right? Like asking questions that are easily answered if you just read the information, which we didn't. It wasn't even much. It was like a paragraph, just like the answer's right there. Just read it before you ask a question. And then, like, oh, I don't like that price, or I don't like it being in a third box, and I prefer my sleeve, so can I just buy the box? And like, we aren't Burger King. We can't make the burger specifically the way you like it. We have to pick the option that we think serves the most people, because we're making a product that has to be sellable across so many different lanes and different solutions and different variables to be shipped to different places. And it's got to serve the most purpose it can in one solution. If we try to make every solution, we just can't. You just can't. Like I chased a lot of stuff. Sorry, I need water. Chased a lot of stuff in my early campaigns. And it bloats the project. It pushes out your timelines. You add things that you weren't planning on adding. And you end up with, a delayed project. You end up with no profit margin. It affects everything, right? So the solutions that we've come up with in most cases are for the health and benefit of the company having some sort of profit margin, and for the end product to still stick to the vision that we have. And at the end of the day, we want to put a game in your hands that you love, and that the experience delivers what we had envisioned for it from the beginning. And you guys can't see or know that from our perspective. So in a lot of cases, you just have to trust us. You have to trust that we're making a product, and we're making products and add-ons and things like that serve those purposes. Now, if this was our first game, you have no reason to trust us. We haven't made anything. You're literally taking it on faith that what's on the screen is going to, live up to what they've said. But you've gotten games from us. Look at that stuff up there. You've gotten games from Druid City Games before. You know what we do. You know how we make things. And now, at this point, the games that we're making have the culmination of all that experience over the last 6 years. And projects and mistakes. That's part of experience, is all the mistakes that we've made, that we've learned from. And so if you've ever had any more reason to trust us, or, you don't have to be me. You can plug this conversation in for almost anybody that you follow on Kickstarter that's making games that you've enjoyed in the past. You've got to trust them to make things. I mean, that's right. When you go to Jamie Stegmeier's ambassador page, which I'm an ambassador, I pay the $15 a year fee, which I love. I think it's an awesome system. I think it's a great way for him to make a little extra income, support his content, and you get dibs. You get dibs on games that he puts out. I'd love to be able to copy that model in some way. I don't make the amount of content he does, but like, I'd love to be able to do something where that $15 a year turns into a bit of a salary for him, which then just takes a little bit of the pressure off, right? Like, it's just hard to do. Anyway. But I love the idea of people being plugged into the point that you get first dibs, you get some sort of benefit. It's kind of like Patreon, but without the Patreon. But overall, like, spinning all these plates, right? If everybody's asking for their very specific way they want the recipe made, what it does is it makes it impossible for a creator to keep things balanced, to keep it streamlined. And that's what we're trying to do. Like, one of the big benefits of doing our 2 boxes the way that we're doing the base game and then all the deluxe minis, deluxe components and stuff in the second box is that we can streamline what's going to be made for retail and for the base game all in one box, right? Like that can be done. And that gives us a lot of synergy, gives us a lot of efficiency. Then we can put all the fancy bits, all the deluxe stuff that you're not going to be able to get later in the deluxe box, in the mini box with the stuff. And then in this case now, you know, if you really want the sleeves, you want to sleeve your cards and you want to make sure that you have the card sizes covered that we have made for the game, then you can get that as well. Which, by the way, all you sleevers who said there's so many of us, so far there's been 170 people add that on. That's it. Out of 6,000, 170. Okay? Now, I know that's not going to be the end number, but I just want you guys to know, like, this is why we have to hedge our bets when we're making products. Because that loud 170 people are like, yes, we get that thing. 170 is not enough to make a product. And in fact, if I'd have known it would be 170, we probably wouldn't have made it, right? Like, I am going to probably have to make 1,000 or 1,500 of these to make this make sense. Generally, maybe I can talk to the factory and we can find a 500 unit situation, but more than likely 1,000, right? So let's say through the pledge manager we get up to 600 or 700. That means I may have 300 of these sitting in the warehouse that you're like, well, you can sell those later. But if they don't sell, I'm now paying for storage. I now have 300 of these products that I didn't sell, and it eats into the profit margin of the entire project. So that's where it gets risky. It's where when we say we just can't offer that because there's not enough demand, this is one of those things. Now, I understand we just announced this recently, so that number could go way up. We may end up selling 2,000 of these by the end of the pledge manager, and then that's great, right? That's totally great. It's fine. That means we've got a nice number that we can make, and we'll make a few extra to sell at conventions or on our web store, that sort of thing. So I'm not complaining, but I'm just giving you some real world feedback on the amount of people that have signed up for that so far. And you might say, well, you didn't offer it the right way. Well, we offered it the best way that we could, right? And that's with any product. That's why the game is $89 for its base, right? Like, I wish it could have been $79 or $69, but it had to be $89. And we've maxed out the amount of stuff we can put in there for $89. So as people are like, oh, I want this thing in the game and I want this thing in the game. And, we can't. Like, there is a threshold that you can't go past. And in the past, I've let myself get talked into doing, and Grim Forest is a great example. Grim Forest should have been $60 MSRP, not $50. When I went back, this is post-campaign, right? Post-campaign, I got the insert. It was garbage. I reached out. I got introduced to Noah at Game Trays. We made the game trays, which are beautiful. But we didn't increase the price of the game, but we added a lot of cost. And Game Trays inserts cost a lot to design, and they cost a lot to produce. They really increase your base cost of the game a lot. And so with that in mind, like, but I didn't increase it because I'd already said, oh, well, it's just, it'll help increase the volume. But at the end of the day, like, you have to be strict on this math problem, or you don't set yourself up for success. And if you don't set yourself up for success to have reasonable, decent profit margins, your company will not be healthy. And I know everybody here wants their products as cheap as they can, right? I think we all want that. But at the end of the day, also, don't you want companies to be healthy? Don't you want them to be able to, because I'll be honest, we make creatives, right? They work best when they don't feel like they're under threat of death, right? And obviously no one's threatening to kill us. Well, I mean, I have gotten one death threat through the campaign. But generally, right? What I mean by that is, if you're constantly worried about, like, how am I going to pay my rent next month? Am I going to be able to afford the bills that we have? your creative, your mental energy can't be focused on making cool stuff because it's got this split, right? Like if you're constantly worried about finances and things like that. And I know we've all got that to some extent, but I think it affects creatives more so because we need our mental energy to create and have good thoughts, and not good thoughts, but like good efficiency, good outputs of solutions for some of the problems that we're trying to fix in the games that we're making. So like, if you're spinning plates and you're constantly worried about the shipping costs and the game costs and all these things, but yet it feels like backers are like, but I wanted it cheap. I want game trays and I want cool dice and I want room for sleeve cards for the people who sleeve cards, and I want the most dual layer boards and linen finish and spot UV and free shipping, and if the box is dinged, I want a brand new box sent to me, and why does the rulebook have a typo in it, and all those things cost money, but yet $89? Oh, for that's too high. Didn't you see that Jaws of the Lion was $50? And it's got more scenarios. So, only 5 scenarios for a Kickstarter exclusive? That's it? No, thank you. The entitlement of the platform, of the atmosphere of Kickstarter has grown to such that it's making some very unrealistic expectations. And over the last 2.5 years, the cost of goods to make the things, to ship the things, has went up. And that's why you see games costing more now. I wish this game could be $50. I would sell more games if it were. I wish shipping was free. I would sell more games. I wish I didn't have to charge you VAT. I would sell more games. I wish I didn't have to pay taxes. I'd make more money. All of these things we share in this, in these wants, but at the end of the day, you can't demand things and then also want it at the cheapest price possible. You have to let companies make a reasonable profit margin. It's not greedy for us to want a profit margin. And there is some weird narrative or weird atmosphere where, like, we'll go and pay Apple $1,200 for a phone that probably, I don't know, I could probably go research this. I think I've read this before somewhere, but I mean, their profit margin on their items is, in the hundreds or thousands, something crazy, right? Like, their profit margins are insane. Any of the industries around here, food, these are billion-dollar companies with billion-dollar profit margin or profits throughout the year. I don't know what their margin is, but if they're profiting in the billions, they have a very strong profit margin. And then you've got board game companies. This is the thing that we say, like, for us that are here, that are passionate, like if your shelves look like mine, this is like a cornerstone in our life, right? Like, this is something we really, truly care about. But yet we demand that these companies have they're greedy, or they have stricter profit margins than these places that we engage with no thought whatsoever and who are profiting billions of dollars, right? And I know it's not exactly apples to apple, but all I would say is I would push back a little bit and say, lighten up a bit. And if you need to pay an extra, if you need to pay an extra $10 for a game that you thought, well, that game looks like it should be 40. I see that it's 50. You're just helping a little bit, right? And if you can afford to buy games directly from publishers, do it. They get the biggest cut that way. They don't have to share as much of it with other people. And I'm not saying don't buy games from your friendly local gaming store, because they also need a cut, and they also serve a great purpose. But every once in a while, if you can buy a game from one of your favorite publishers directly from their web store on a pre-order or something like that, help them out. Do it. I mean, when I go to my friendly local game store, even if I'm not looking for a game, I just want to peruse, I try to pick up something. I try to buy something from them just because I want to, I want to help that. And I don't get all of my games from my friendly local gaming store, but I do try to go as often as I can and buy something. Okay, my rant has went off the rails. It's super long today. I know when I see 20 minutes on my little counter at the top that I need to wrap up. All of that to say, it's rough for creators and it's not easy, and we don't have huge profit margins, and nobody's driving Lambos, and we are trying to give you the most we can possible. I promise you, the thing that every creator toils over before they launch their campaign is, what is the lowest price I can offer this game at? I want to still put everything in the game that I wanted to put in the game, but what's the lowest absolute price I can survive on? And it's much different than major corporations who charge for things, and they're saying, what's the most we can charge for this and get away with? Totally opposite ends of the spectrum here, right? Big corporations, what's the we see this every day in the news. People who have reported record profit margins last year and then are announcing price hikes. And they just had record profits, but yet now they're raising their prices even more. How do you justify that? We're over here saying we're trying to put as much in the game for you, and what is the least amount that we're going to be able to charge? And so, even I know there's only a couple hundred of us that watch these videos. Even if I can help change the mindset of a very small amount of people, you guys can also become sounding boards and comments of not just this campaign, but every campaign you're a part of. Help push back against some of that entitlement. Help push back against that narrative that board game companies are greedy and trying to suck the money out of it. It's just not. It's just, nobody's here because they wanted to get rich. People are here because they're passionate about making board games and giving players awesome experiences. That's why they're here. All right. Thank you. I didn't even talk about today's release, but we'll talk about more about all the cool stuff tomorrow. I had this specific subject I really want to dive into today. So it's very ranty. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Bye.